It's not like we have a lot of validation when we're on this path of learning how to trust ourselves. We're like, am I doing it right? And it's like, where is my trophy? Where is my A? Where is my, my positive grade to tell me that I'm on the right track and I should keep trusting myself and doing what I'm doing?
Welcome to the Reluctant Priestess podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Goldberg, and this is your space to explore the weird, woo-woo, and sublime world of spirit in a grounded and playful way. Each week, we'll learn how to navigate both the beauty and the bullshit of the spiritual world to see how and if all the fabulous topics in the name of wellness that you've been curious to know more about can actually help you uncover what it means to live a more deeply connected, inspiring, and fulfilling life. If navigating the world of the unseen has felt overwhelming, fake, or too out there for you to explore on your own before, you're exactly where you need to be. The cosmic abyss awaits, my love. Let's see what magic lies in store for us today.
Hello. Happy 2023. It is a new year, apparently. Although every day is the beginning of a new year, I guess, from the year before. And 2023 is already off to an interesting start. Having so many curious experiences with men, having so many curious experiences around money and work and family. Like every aspect of my life. It's really interesting. I think the most curious thing I'm experiencing right now is I'm playing with energy. How does one play with energy? I'm noticing how my energy is interacting with others and how I'm showing up. So one thing I've been doing is learning how to not initiate things with other people, which is to say, if I don't reach out to a friend, will they reach out? If I don't reach out to a loved one, another loved one, like, will they reach out? If I don't try to initiate something with someone that I'm feeling interested in romantically, what do they do? And what I have been finding is that a few select beings are reaching out and desiring my company, and a lot of beings who say they want to be around me or want to like engage with me romantically or whatnot, they fall away very quickly. And so it has me thinking, why don't I just wait a little bit, like, and just see what happens? And I think some of this, where did this come from? It came from a YouTube video or like an Instagram clip somebody sent me, and they were sharing it. I think it was Blue of Earth who had shared it, and she goes, the way to attract is, especially as a being in a female body, and really resonating with that artistic feminine polarity and energy, is to receive, because like biologically speaking, the egg allows the sperm in. Like the sperm are all like fighting its way in and like trying to like see who's going to get into the egg, and it's not about who gets in, it's about who is allowed in. And the egg just sits there and is just like, I'm just being an egg. Who wants to come and fertilize me? Oh, nope, not you. I'm not really feeling you. Oh, nope, not you. Oh, you can come in, right? And it's magnetizing. It's magnetizing in that way by just being. When we are being and radiating our energy as we are, what comes in? And it's really interesting to see what's coming in. And I've been noticing a lot of assumptions being made and projections and stories as to who I am based on how beings are receiving me. And it doesn't make them wrong, but it doesn't make them right either. And those who desire to actually get to know me better rather than project something onto me, those are the ones that are reaching out. And it's actually very few people who are doing that. And it doesn't mean I don't like the people who aren't reaching back. It's just like I'm very aware of what is coming in and what is happening. And it's new for me because I'm so used I'm so used to initiating. I have a lot of fire energy in like every chart, astrologically speaking, ayurvedically speaking. Like it doesn't really matter what, like even in my human design, like the energy around so much of who I am and what I do, it's very initiatory and like the fire starter. And so I'm really used to like being the one to initiate. And there, it's a beautiful balance because in human design, which for those of you who aren't aware of human design, it's basically an amalgamation of a few different things: astrology, the chakra system, the Chinese I Ching. There's a few other things in there, and it's based on your birth time and location, and it's actually very actionable. So that's why I like human design, is because it actually gives you like, hey, this is what it says in your destiny and in your chart, and this is what you do about it, which can be super helpful. And I've played with that energy over the past few years and found a lot of it to be really resonant and true for me. And my human design is actually, I am meant to initiate. And I don't always want to initiate, but I usually have to. But I'm playing with the subtleties of that energy these days, where it's like, okay, I don't have to be that obvious. Which is hilarious because I tend to be pretty dramatic and obvious. If I don't like something, it's pretty blatantly obvious. If I do like something or someone, it's pretty obvious. I'm playing with the subtleties though a little bit more and enjoying that process. I pretty much only hang out with Brits and and I was hanging out with some Canadians for a while, and they all say process, so I find myself going back and forth between process and process. Anyways, that's not related. It's just what's alive as I'm saying it. So yeah, it's really curious to play in the subtleties of that and to play with the energy of initiation versus receiving, giving and receiving. And I speak to, that's all part of the artistic and curator energy, that artist and curator energy that I spoke to last week or 2 weeks ago on my last podcast. And it's something that really interests me is just like playing in all of these different frequencies and energies. And because I'm much more attuned to it than I ever have been, I'm at a point where I'm playing with that discernment. Discernment meaning like I can get into the real depths and the weeds and like the subtleties of the energy and tweak and finesse in a way that I haven't been able to before. And it doesn't mean that I'm masterful at it in any way. It just means that that's where I'm at, and that's where it feels good and juicy and curious and playful for me to be at. So yeah, 2023 is turning out to be really curious. Really interesting. We'll see where it goes. We're already like 2 weeks in. I'm not really sure. Mercury and Mars are about to come out of retrograde. Thank fuck, because honestly, it's been really intense. Mercury is all about communication and technology, like not working, and communication feeling sticky and heavy and challenging. And it's been happening in my 10th house of like public life and career. And so like the money thing has been really interesting. I've got all of these things I'm like waiting to be paid for and like haven't been paid for yet, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, this is fine. This is what's happening. I get it. And Mars is all about taking action and feeling a little bit feeling charged, but not necessarily angry. And when it's in retrograde, there's like a little bit more frustration and anger. And that's been happening in my third house of daily life and family, like siblings, family, like important friends. And in that third house specifically, I have my Jupiter and my Venus. So essentially, abundance and love are also like at a standstill. So it's like there's a lot of frustrating energy because like there's no movement forward on that too. So it's all about love and money, baby. Struggling. And it all makes sense. And this is why I like things in esoterica land, is because sometimes it feels like things just can't be explained. And then you look at the astrology and you look at all these things and it's like, right, actually, that fucking makes sense. And, you know, it's all very playful because I know so many beings, especially in Ubudia, where I live, in Ubud, Bali, right? They get really like stuck in this one way of thinking. Like, of course, this is how it is because of the astrology. And like they put people in boxes because of the astrology. And, you know, all of these esoteric tools are just that. They're tools, they're resources to help us better understand who we are, especially when we're first getting started on a practice of self-awareness and in the practice of self-awareness and the spiritual realms. And I don't even like saying that just because like everything is spirit. We just don't need to keep calling it that. But I think you know what I mean. So it's just not, it's really helpful, but it's not like, you know, it's not like we have a lot of validation when we're on this path of learning how to trust ourselves. We're like, am I doing it right? And it's like, where is my trophy? Where is my A? Where is my, you know, my positive grade to tell me that I'm on the right track and I should keep trusting myself and doing what I'm doing? There's not really a lot of that except for all these esoteric tools that I think feel quite validating. So it's kind of like the universe or God or source or whatever you want to call it, just being like, you're doing great, babe. Keep doing it. I see you. So we have to be playful in these realms and not take anything too seriously. Like learn about it, get connected, learn that everything is connected, as above, so below. Like we are so connected. We are literally like stardust. We are born of stardust, like a star burst during the Big Bang. And that's just science. And then matter was created and the earth came about, you know, like centuries, millennia, blah, blah, blah later. I don't know. I'm not actually a scientist, but it's in there somewhere. Internet, Google it. So I do think that these things are valid and important. So yeah, Mars and Mercury being in retrograde, that's been like deeply affecting all of these energies. And where I live is a vortex, is a super powerful, potent vortex of energy where like things can be felt in the subtle body really quickly. And it can feel like a centrifuge. And I think actually in one of the last interviews that I posted with my friend Lynn, she speaks to that, is that we can get like there are these pockets and these portals around the world. Ubud and Bali is one of them, where you get like whirled around in this vortexy, swirly, super intense energy, and then spit out again, like really quickly. So we can process things like at a much more rapid rate, and things get manifested more quickly here. And I think it's because there are just spots on the earth that feel more potent energetically. They just hold like deep energetic vibrations. Oof, I'm like feeling my angel wings tingling as I'm saying that. And at the same time, Bali is such a magical space, and the people who are from Bali hold ceremony daily, multiple times daily. And right now we're actually in the middle of, and actually not the middle, but at the end of a really beautiful 10-day celebration called Galungan and Kuningan. And it's basically the victory of dharma over adharma, so good over evil. And so really like potent celebrations have been going on for the past 10 days here specifically in Ubud, which is the epicenter of spirituality within Bali, which is the epicenter of spirituality on the planet. So whew, all of that is to say, it's been intense, baby. What else is new? I think I don't jive if it's not intense. I have had a few friends who said something to me. They're like, "You live in Ubud. Isn't that intense? I can't spend longer than a few days there." And I am at a place where I do feel like I've kind of graduated Ubud, where I do need to get out more often than I used to when I first lived here, like over a year ago. I could go like many weeks and be like, "Wow, I've been in Ubud for a long time. Maybe I should leave, but I don't want to." And now I'm like, oh my gosh, get me out. But also, I love being here too. But that's to say, I do well with intensity. I do well with intense beings. I won't say I do well with intense situations. Sometimes I don't do well with intense situations, but I love living fiercely and intensely. And I love experiencing and connecting with fierce, intense people. So I will say my tolerance of it is higher than I think I give myself credit for. Which is kind of related to what I was hoping to chat about today, which is more about making changes in our life. Because change, right? We're at the beginning of this new Gregorian year. People are setting New Year's resolutions. It's a fresh start. There's opportunity. There's hope renewed for a new way of being and interacting with ourselves in the world. And I've had multiple people, clients, friends, randos, ask me about what it means to take on or to make changes and in our life. And I've had a lot of beings mention, just how intense I am, or how intense it seems like my life has been, or how courageous I am that I've taken on these changes. And maybe all of that is true. And maybe it's not. It's all a matter of perspective. To me, it doesn't always feel courageous to make the changes. I still sit in a deep resonance of a lot of fear when I'm making changes. Less so now because I've become more practiced at it and I've learned how to trust myself more deeply. But courage doesn't feel like courage. It feels like fear, and it feels like taking a step towards something that is unknown, but the known is unbearable and it's no longer an option. But we still step forward and do the necessary thing, even if it feels challenging. So when it comes to making changes, even really ones that feel small, or they sound small but feel huge to our system when we're first making changes, it's the same. It's the same thing. It's just, wow, I can't keep living the way I was living before. And the way that I have done it, which is to say everything all at once, all the time, always, big explosions of change, it's not for everyone. That's not everyone's path. It's not necessary either to take a hand grenade to your life, or to walk into the fire, or to see if you survive the avalanche or tsunami. You just don't need to do that. It's the beginning of taking on bigger and making bigger changes, is learning how to incorporate smaller ones in. It's taking the low-hanging fruit and taking that as a win.
taking a moment to interrupt this playful, spiritually enlightening episode to let you know that if what you're hearing is igniting and inspiring you to take action and to step more deeply into your own empowered, transformational journey, go to the link in the show notes below and set up a free 30-minute mentorship call with me so we can chat about how to support you with aligning to the path that feels most resonant to your soul. And if you're enjoying this episode so far, don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast at the end to ensure that more beautiful conversations with badass beings around the world continue to transpire. Thank you so much again for listening. Let's dive back into the magic.
So one of the biggest small changes I've made right when everything started to shift more. It's going to sound really small and silly, but it's just not. It was a low-hanging fruit win. Was I started tongue scraping, which is an Ayurvedic ancient practice that you take a metal, like it's like an upside down U shaped piece of metal. The one I have now is copper. The one before I had was stainless steel. And you literally scrape the grossness, for lack of a better or more technical term, off your tongue in the morning when you wake up. And it's a cleanliness practice and ritual, and it supports with health and well-being. But I remember when I was sitting in a teacher training, I was in my 300-hour teacher training with my teacher, Shannon Von Burns, and she was teaching us about Ayurveda as part of the curriculum. And she goes, you all need to start tongue scraping. It's a small practice, just start doing it. And I remember feeling completely overwhelmed by that small change because my mornings already felt so tight. I was waking up by 5:30. I had to get out the door by 5:45 at the very latest. I was like, how am I going to squeeze in tongue scraping in the morning? And it felt like the end of the world to even add this in, even though it was just a few seconds. And I remember expressing that to her, and she was like, you can make time for this. This is not hard. Like, do it. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Just do it. And that was the key. It was just adding in that practice. And then I noticed how I felt when I did it. I go, oh, I actually feel better when I do this. And literally, it takes like half a second, right? But it felt so big. So it was one of those like silly, small, big changes to implement. And then it just became my practice. Now I actually can't function if I don't do it. It's like something I'm like, oh, I haven't tongue scraped today. This doesn't feel right, and it was just adding that, even that was a huge win. And I remember being really proud of myself after I'd done it for about a week, every day for about a week. Actually, I didn't even do it for a full week. I remember I missed a day and I was like, it's okay. I'll just do it again tomorrow. And that was a big practice too, because it wasn't about beating myself up because I didn't do the thing that I said I was going to do, and just not overthinking it, just getting back on the horse, so to speak, and doing it the next day. That's what it really is about when it comes to making changes, to make small, incremental, seemingly nothing, little shitty, taking those shitty wins and celebrating the fuck out of them because they actually matter. If you're one of those people that makes checklists, like daily checklists or anything, I encourage you, if you're not already doing it, write down the things that you've done that you take for granted, and you can just check them right off. Like sometimes when I write a checklist and I need to like feel like I'm accomplishing things and kind of get some motivation to feel like I'm on track, I will literally write down something as silly as tongue scrape. Today I tongue scraped. Today I made breakfast. Today I did and like, it doesn't even matter what it is. It sounds like today I brushed my teeth today, right, I washed my face. Good. These are things I do anyways, but I just write them on the checklist just so I can check it off. And it feels really good. And it's a little motivator to say, oh, right, look at all that I already did today. And I feel like I have the capacity to add something else in, that I am capable of doing something more. Not that I have to do something more, but because that's not it. It's like who you are is not defined by what you do. And that's a complete and utter lie that capitalism and consumerism teaches us, is that you have to do something in order to be of value and to know who you are. That's not true. But it can help when we are doing our best to find a more joyful way of living. Through action, we can eventually come to a space where we realize that action is no longer necessary, and we can surrender to inaction and to just being. But there does come a time, and this is where I'm at now in my life, where action is necessary again, and it's learning how to balance between the two. And that is generally how I feel about the whole spiritual awakening process. I don't know how I feel about each of those words. When it comes to change, what we're really doing is we are removing our egos from the equation. Ego is what we put out there, what is seen, what is visible. It is the mask that we wear to society, versus the self, which is like the core essence, our souls. We need both, by the way. Anybody that's like, kill off the ego, please stop listening to them. Please stop immediately listening to them. We can't kill our egos. It's not good to do that, because your ego is what keeps you physically in your body. Otherwise, you would just leave this planet. You would just die. Like, you need your ego to help you wake up in the morning, to help make sure that you realize, oh, right, if I do drive off the cliff, I'm going to physically no longer be on this planet. We need our egos. They're important. We love them. They're just not allowed to drive the car. And I think I've said things like that before. And we are learning how to take back control of the narrative being our life, from the ego driving the way forward. With these little incremental changes that we make. The ego says, if you start tongue scraping in the morning and you take 1/2 second to do that, you are going to be late for your job, and then you're going to get fired, and then you won't be able to work anywhere in town ever again, because you will have been late, and people will know that, and no one's going to want to work with you. And if you can't work with anyone, you won't make money, and then you won't have a house, and then your husband will divorce you, and then you are going to die. And you will be shut out from society and then die. The order was a little off there, but I think you get what I'm talking about. Like, it goes to that level of extreme. Maybe you're not consciously having those thoughts, but the ego will always find a way to make sure you know you will die if you implement any level of change. And it's just not true. So, I mean, some of it could be true. I've spoken to that before too. Sometimes it could actually mean physical death. Most of the time, it does not. So we find these little ways of disproving that. Okay, so I'm going to tongue scrape for a week and see what happens. Oh, I actually feel better, and I wasn't late. I actually was more on time. I even felt better after I did it. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I didn't die. Thank you so much, ego. Cool. You were wrong though, and like, it's okay, but like, you were wrong. So all of these little wins matter over time, because over time it has a snowball effect where we realize we've taken on more and more little wins. We feel more confident to take on a bigger change. wow, I'm actually deeply unhappy in my marriage. I'm actually super unhappy in my job. And I've been noticing that I've cried every single day since the beginning of the relationship, or since the day I took the job, and I actually can see it's connected. So it feels like I need to leave it. And by the way, I don't have the resources to be able to like navigate leaving my relationship, leaving my marriage, leaving my job, saying something to my friend to stand up for myself because they've crossed a boundary that doesn't feel good to my system. I don't have the resources right now, whether that means financially or, therapeutically or whatever that is. What do I need to do to get there? Or is it time to jump and just hope to the God essence that I find a way and like I know I'll be held? Everybody's answer to that question is different. There's no wrong answer. I have done it both ways myself, where sometimes it's felt like I don't have the answers, I don't have the resources, I don't have the wherewithal, and so I wait and I wait and I wait till I feel more confident and ready to do it. And at a certain point, it's time. And sometimes I still don't have the resources or the tools or the feeling of readiness, and I just do it anyway because I do feel I've built up enough trust that I know I'll be okay, that I'll land on my feet somehow. I recently was in an instance, in a situation where I felt like I was going to experience another really big change in my life, like another upheaval. And it initially felt really scary. And then I sat with it and I'm like, well, I'm not in a place where that would be ideal, but I know, truly I know I'll be okay. And I cannot explain it rationally to anyone that I'll be okay. But in my heart, I trust I will be held. Something better will come along. And I surrendered to the idea that this upheaval could happen. And then it actually didn't end up happening. But that was new. Right? I mentioned it earlier, I'm learning how to discern and sit with these energies, these frequencies. And I've been doing it for a while now. So I've built up a really strong trust for myself and a really strong tolerance for change. Because change is the only thing that's really constant, truly. So many beings desire to hold on, cling to definitions that are outdated or preconceived notions of what things should be based on either what they've learned from themselves and experiences prior to like this exact moment, or that have been passed down ancestrally or ingrained and programmed in us through society. And all it does is make us rigid and finite. The more we can allow ourselves to sit in the expanse and openness, the inevitability that change will happen, whether you desire it, like it, or not, the more we can allow ourselves to sit in that surrender and acceptance of change, the more playful life becomes. I won't say it's easier. Change is challenging. It can be still. We can build a tolerance to it, but we still have to experience whatever level of grief we are hit with whenever change transpires. No matter how big of changes we go through, no matter how often we go through them, it doesn't really matter. There still is a period of grief we have to sit with and move through. And grief doesn't have a time frame on it. It's not linear. It's deeply cyclical and it's deeply strange. And we can think we're fine for a time and then it will come back and get us. So it's more lighthearted and playful to sit in the resonance of openness and acceptance of change than it's necessarily easy to do it. But we accept all of it. And we accept that grief is going to be a natural, I don't want to say consequence, but a natural reaction or effect of whatever transformational cause has transpired. We accept that grief is a natural reaction and effect. Again, it's not that we're ready for it. We're like, okay, here comes the grief, but it's like when the grief hits, we go, oh right, this part comes too. And to be in deep, gentle tenderness for ourselves when that happens. I recently experienced some non-linear grief just this morning. I had felt really good about something that I've been grieving and moving through for the past several months and weeks. And it came back up for me again today. And I'm like, okay, curious that it's coming up. I don't really know what that's about. And it doesn't really matter. It's here. So I cried. I hadn't cried about this thing in a few weeks, and I cried. I didn't question it. I didn't try to rationalize or understand it. I just knew that it was happening, and I allowed it. I accepted it. And then I moved on with my day. Right? So when we're making changes, when we're choosing to make changes, choose to make the smallest possible big win, like big change for a small big win for yourself, and see how that feels in your body. And if it feels really, really juicy and good, meaning, or like peaceful, resonant, keep doing that. And then do the next thing when that feels right. Build confidence. That's how you build your trust muscle. You start actually building trust with yourself. Realizing, oh, that really small thing that seemed really silly to follow through with that I always liked, like for instance, astrology. I always really liked astrology, but I thought it was weird and I didn't want to do it because I thought people would think I was weird if I did. But the more I allowed myself to follow through and learn about it, I was like, wow, that really validates a lot of things for me. I feel like that was a good idea for me to investigate. So I start building that trust with myself. Right? It doesn't have to even be change. It can just be going down a path and learning about something that's been calling you. This is how we build trust. This is how we build tolerance to change. This is how we realize we are more courageous than we thought possible. And then people start saying how courageous you are, and you go, oh, I guess I am. I just did what felt aligned. And I kept doing it. So today feels like that's enough of a transmission for you. Chew on that, chomp on it, stew in it, juice it, see how it feels, see what comes through, share with me what comes up. And if it's something that you want to learn more deeply about in terms of your own telling your own story, like shifting the narrative more purposefully to learn about yourself, what you want, what you desire, claiming who you are more deeply and masterfully, doing so in a space that includes movement and artistry and writing and poetry and badassery, technical term, and play. Play in all of it, all the aspects. If that's something that feels curious to you, I have an 8-week online program called Rewrite Your Story. It starts February 1st, and I have 5 different tiers of involvement that you can choose for yourself. And there's sliding scale payment level, like at every level. So whatever your financial, abilities or capabilities right now are, I have a different tier for you for everything. So it's all going to include group coaching and lectures and transmissions and oracles and embodiments for everyone, regardless of whatever level you're at. And then after that, you can get more personal coaching and mentorship. And for the first 3 people who sign up, I am giving away 1 free coaching session, regardless of whatever tier you're at. And I'm so excited. I'm offering my full experience. So it's tier 5. There's 5 tiers. My 5th tier of experience, which is weekly coaching and all the other things that I mentioned already, lifetime access to the resources, group coaching, transmissions, oracles, all of that. You'll get it for free if you apply for the scholarship. I'm giving 1 spot away for free because I know how important it is to receive the help we need when we are feeling like we need a helping hand and we feel alone in the process. So this program is for women right now. In the future, I'm sure I'll be expanding it to all beings, but it feels important to hold this container to women specifically. And so if you're a woman who is desiring some additional support with knowing who you are more deeply, building your trust muscle, and doing so with love, with play, with support, apply for the scholarship or go ahead and just pay for one of the tiered memberships that feel most in resonance to you. And let's navigate this beautiful mythopoetic journey of the feminine, of the artistry, of transformation together. This is what I have done. This is what I do best. This is what I am here for. So I hope you'll join me. Reach out if you have questions. Check it out on my Instagram, online. Reach out. Yeah, it's just that. Sending you so many blessings for fruitful, kind, beautifully amplified lives sitting in the resonance of love, of light, of joy, which are all birthed from the glow of darkness. Yeah, just that. I love you, and until next time, ciao.
Thank you so much for tuning into this very Reluctant Priestesses podcast. Without you, I'm just talking to myself, and as much as I actually enjoy that these days, this is way more fun. If you liked this episode, please be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. And take a moment to send this to someone who you think this episode might resonate with. Who knows? Maybe it's the bit of magic they didn't know they were looking for. Until next time, ciao.